Millionaire CEO finds a poor 7-year-old girl cleaning his office. "Mummy couldn't come," she says tearfully. He looks at her, and his heart breaks before we tell this moving tale of sadness and solitude. Share where you're watching from and subscribe for more touching stories. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime as CEO Michael Harrison stepped into the 42nd floor of Harrison Industries at exactly 5:30 a.m. The building was supposed to be empty at this ungodly hour, which was precisely why he preferred arriving before dawn. No interruptions, no meetings, just pure focus on the quarterly reports that would determine the fate of 3,000 employees. His Italian leather shoes clicked against the marble floor as he made his way through the dimly lit reception area. The cleaning crew should have finished hours ago, yet he could hear the faint sound of movement coming from his corner office. Michael's jaw tightened. He'd specifically instructed building management that his office was off limits during cleaning hours due to sensitive documents scattered across his desk. As he approached the frosted glass doors, bearing his name in gold lettering, Michael prepared to deliver a stern warning to whoever had dared to ignore protocol. He pushed open the door, ready to assert his authority, but the words died in his throat. There, standing on her tiptoes behind his mahogany desk, was a little girl who couldn't have been more than 7 years old. Her small hands gripped a spray bottle that was clearly too big for her tiny frame, while she struggled to reach the corner of his desk with a worn cleaning rag. Her dark brown hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her oversized yellow t-shirt hung loosely over faded jeans that had seen better days. "What in the world?" Michael whispered, his briefcase slipping from his hand and hitting the floor with a loud thud. The little girl spun around, her enormous brown eyes wide with fear. The spray bottle clattered to the floor, sending cleaning solution splashing across the expensive Persian rug. She immediately dropped to her knees, frantically trying to wipe up the mess with her small hands. I'm so sorry," she cried, her voice trembling. "Please don't be mad. I was just trying to clean it good like Mama does." Michael stood frozen, watching this tiny child desperately attempting to clean up what she perceived as a catastrophic mistake. Her hands shook as she pressed the rag against the rug, and he could see tears beginning to form in the corners of her eyes. Hey, it's okay," Michael said softly, his usual commanding tone replaced by something gentler. He slowly approached, careful not to startle her further. "You don't need to clean that up." The little girl looked up at him with those impossibly large eyes, and Michael felt something shift inside his chest. "But I made a mess in your pretty office," she whispered. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Michael asked, crouching down to her level. "Emma," she replied, in a voice barely above a whisper. "Emma Rodriguez." "Emma? That's a beautiful name," Michael said, offering what he hoped was a reassuring smile. "Can you tell me why you're here so early? Where are your parents?" The question seemed to hit Emma like a physical blow. Her small shoulders began to shake, and despite her obvious efforts to be brave, tears started streaming down her cheeks. "Mama couldn't come to work today," Emma said between sniffles. "She's really sick and can't get out of bed, but she said we need the money or we'll lose our apartment. She told me to come do her job just for today, and she drew me a map of how to get here on the bus." Michael felt his heart clench. This child had navigated the city's bus system alone, in the dark, to clean office buildings because her mother was too ill to work. "So, you came here all by yourself?" he asked gently. Emma nodded, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "Mama said I had to be really good and clean everything perfect, just like she does. But I'm not as tall as her, and I can't reach some places, and now I made a mess." Her voice broke completely. Michael had built an empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars, had negotiated deals that changed entire industries, had stood before boards of directors without flinching. But sitting on his office floor, looking at this brave little girl who was trying so hard to help her family, he felt more moved than he had in decades. "Emma," he said softly, "you've done nothing wrong, nothing at all." But as he looked at her tear-stained face and the determination still flickering in her young eyes despite her fear, Michael realized that his entire world was about to change in ways he never could have imagined. Michael remained crouched beside Emma, his mind racing as he processed the situation. The little girl continued to dab at the spilled cleaning solution with her tiny rag, her movements becoming more frantic with each passing second. "Emma, please stop," Michael said gently, placing his hand over her small one. "You're not in trouble, I promise." She looked up at him with those enormous brown eyes, searching his face for any sign of anger or disappointment. "But Mama said I had to do everything perfect, or the mean boss man would fire her, and we wouldn't have any money for food." The words hit Michael like a punch to the gut. Mean boss man? Is that really how his employees saw him? He thought of all the times he'd walked through the building, focused solely on profits and productivity, never really seeing the people who kept his empire running. "Tell me about your mama," Michael said, settling more comfortably on the floor beside her. "What's wrong? Is she very sick?" Emma's lip quivered as she set down the rag. "She's been coughing real bad for weeks, and yesterday she couldn't even get up. She was burning hot when I touched her forehead, just like when I had the flu last year, but she said we can't go to the doctor because it costs too much money." Michael's throat tightened. Health care costs. Something he'd never had to worry about in his entire privileged life. Yet here was a 7-year-old child whose mother was suffering because she couldn't afford medical treatment. "She must be very proud of you," Michael said, "coming all this way to help her." "I took 3 buses," Emma said with a hint of pride breaking through her tears, "and I remembered all the stops just like Mama taught me. She made me practice the route last week in case something like this happened." The revelation that this child's mother had been preparing for the possibility of being too sick to work, training her 7-year-old daughter to navigate the city alone, made Michael's chest ache in a way he'd never experienced. "Emma, how long has your mama been working here?" "Since before I was born," Emma replied, unconsciously straightening her shoulders. "She says she's the best cleaner in the whole building, and that she takes care of the important people's offices real good." Michael thought about the immaculate condition his office was always in when he arrived each morning. He'd never given it much thought. It was simply expected. But now he realized that behind that perfection was a woman who took enormous pride in her work, who had been quietly ensuring his comfort for years. "What's your mama's name?" "Maria Rodriguez," Emma said. "She cleans floors 38 through 45 all by herself. She knows where everything goes in every office, and she never breaks anything or moves papers around." Michael made a mental note to review Maria Rodriguez's employment file as soon as possible. How had he never noticed the name of the woman who had been taking care of his workspace for years? "Emma, I want you to know something very important," Michael said, his voice serious but kind. "Your mama is not going to lose her job. Not today, not ever. And you don't need to clean my office." Emma's eyes widened with hope, but doubt quickly crept in. "But if I don't do her work, who will? And what if the other boss people get mad?" "The other boss people work for me," Michael explained gently. "I'm the CEO. That means I make the decisions around here. And I've decided that what your mama needs right now is rest and medical care, not work." "But we need the money," Emma whispered, her practical 7-year-old mind cutting straight to the heart of the matter. Michael stood up and walked to his desk, pulling out his phone. Emma watched nervously as he dialed a number. "Dr. Patricia Wells, this is Michael Harrison. I need you to make a house call this morning. Yes, I know you don't normally do house calls, but this is important. A woman named Maria Rodriguez. She's very ill and can't afford to come to your office." Emma's mouth fell open as she listened to Michael arrange for a doctor to visit her mother. She'd never seen someone make things happen so quickly, so easily. After hanging up, Michael turned back to Emma. "Dr. Wells is the best doctor in the city. She's going to take care of your mama today." "How much will it cost?" Emma asked, her young voice heavy with worry that no child should have to carry. "You don't need to worry about that," Michael said firmly. But as he looked at Emma's cautious hope, Michael realized he was facing the most important decision of his business career, and it had nothing to do with quarterly reports or profit margins. Michael watched as Emma processed the news about the doctor, her small face cycling through emotions too complex for someone her age. She clutched the cleaning rag to her chest like a security blanket, clearly struggling to believe that help was really coming. "Mr. Emma started, then stopped, realizing she didn't know his name. "Mr. Harrison," he supplied gently, "but you can call me Michael." "Mr. Michael," she said carefully, "are you really the boss of this whole big building?" "I am," Michael confirmed, settling back down to her eye level. "And that means I can make sure your mama gets better." Emma nodded slowly, but her brow remained furrowed with worry. "Mama always told me that rich people don't like to help poor people. She said they think we're dirty or lazy." The innocent observation struck Michael like a physical blow. Out of the mouths of babes. How many times had he walked past homeless individuals on the street, avoiding eye contact? How many times had he made assumptions about people based solely on their appearance or circumstances? "Your mama sounds very wise," Michael said carefully. "But sometimes people can surprise you. Sometimes they can change." Emma studied his face with the intense scrutiny that only children possess. "Are you going to change?" The question hung in the air between them, and Michael realized he was at a crossroads. He could arrange for Maria's medical care, perhaps give them some money, and send them on their way with his conscience appeased. Or he could truly examine the kind of man he'd become and the kind of man he wanted to be. "I think maybe I already am changing," he admitted. Emma's stomach chose that moment to growl loudly, the sound echoing in the quiet office. She immediately pressed her hands to her belly, embarrassed. "When did you last eat?" Michael asked. "Yesterday at lunch," Emma said quietly. "Mama used our food money to buy my bus ticket to get here. She said it was more important that I could do her job than for us to have breakfast." Michael's hands clenched into fists at his sides. A mother choosing between feeding her child and keeping their home, it was a reality so far removed from his own experience that it felt almost fictional. Yet here was Emma, thin and hungry, living proof of struggles he'd never imagined. "Would you like some breakfast?" he asked. Emma's eyes lit up, but then dimmed with worry. "I don't have any money. Remember what I said about me being the boss here? That means I can get us breakfast whenever I want." Michael pulled out his phone again and called the building's executive catering service. "This is Michael Harrison. I need breakfast delivered to my office immediately, something a 7-year-old would enjoy. Maybe pancakes, fruit, orange juice." As he spoke, he watched Emma's face transform with wonder. He realized this might be the first time in her young life that someone had simply provided for her without expecting anything in return. "They'll be here in 20 minutes, Michael said after hanging up. "Real pancakes?" Emma whispered. "The fluffiest pancakes in the city," Michael promised. Emma's reserve finally cracked, and she gave him the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. It was like sunshine breaking through storm clouds, and Michael felt something warm unfold in his chest. "Mr. Michael, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why are you being so nice to me? Mama said most people don't care about kids like me." The question pierced straight through all of Michael's carefully constructed defenses. Here was a child who had been taught to expect indifference or cruelty from the world, yet she was still brave enough to ask for kindness. "Because everyone deserves kindness, Emma," Michael said, his voice thick with emotion he couldn't quite identify. "Everyone deserves to have someone care about them." Emma nodded solemnly, as if filing away this new piece of information about how the world could work. As they waited for breakfast to arrive, Michael found himself looking at his opulent office through Emma's eyes. The imported marble, the priceless artwork, the custom furniture, all of it suddenly felt excessive and cold. This space that had once represented his success now felt like a monument to his isolation from the real world. But sitting on the floor with this remarkable little girl, Michael began to understand that true success might be measured very differently than he'd always believed. The breakfast arrived precisely on schedule, wheeled in by two uniformed caterers who couldn't hide their surprise at seeing their billionaire CEO sitting cross-legged on the floor with a small child. Michael had cleared a space on the Persian rug, creating an impromptu picnic area in his executive office. Emma's eyes grew as wide as saucers when she saw the silver-domed plates being arranged before them. The caterers lifted the covers to reveal a feast. Golden pancakes stacked high with butter and syrup, fresh strawberries and blueberries, crispy bacon, scrambled eggs, and a tall glass of orange juice that sparkled in the morning light. "Is all of this really for me?" Emma whispered, as if speaking too loudly might make the food disappear. "For both of us," Michael said, though he found himself more interested in watching her reaction than in eating. "Go ahead, Emma. Dig in." She approached the food with the reverence of someone who understood its value. Her small hands shook slightly as she cut into the pancakes, and when she took her first bite, she closed her eyes and made a small sound of pure bliss. "These are the best pancakes in the whole world," she declared solemnly. Michael smiled, realizing he couldn't remember the last time he'd truly tasted his food, rather than simply consuming fuel between meetings. Watching Emma savor each bite reminded him of simple pleasures he'd forgotten existed. As they ate, Emma began to open up more, her natural 7-year-old chatter emerging as her initial fear faded. She told him about her school, how she was the best reader in her class, and how she wanted to be a teacher when she grew up so she could help other kids learn. "Mama says education is the most important thing," Emma said between bites of strawberry. "She didn't get to finish school because she had to work when she was young, but she makes sure I do all my homework every single day." "Your mama sounds like an incredible woman," Michael said, and he meant it. "She is," Emma agreed. "She works 3 jobs to take care of us. She cleans here at night, she works at the grocery store during the day, and on weekends she cleans houses in the fancy neighborhood." 3 jobs. Michael's mind reeled. This woman was working herself to exhaustion, literally making herself sick, just to survive. And yet she'd raised a daughter who was polite, articulate, and full of dreams. "Emma, is it just you and your mama?" Her face fell slightly. "My daddy went away when I was little. Mama says some people aren't ready to be parents, and that's okay because we have each other." The maturity in her voice broke Michael's heart. This child had been forced to understand adult complexities that most 7-year-olds never had to contemplate. Michael's phone rang, interrupting the moment. Dr. Wells's name appeared on the screen. "Excuse me for just a moment, Emma," he said, stepping away to take the call. "Michael, I've just finished examining Maria Rodriguez," Dr. Wells said without preamble. "She has pneumonia and is severely dehydrated. She needs immediate hospitalization." "Whatever she needs," Michael said quickly. "There's more," Dr. Wells continued. "This woman is exhausted beyond measure. Her immune system is compromised from overwork and stress. Even after we treat the pneumonia, she's going to need weeks of rest to recover properly." Michael glanced back at Emma, who was carefully eating her bacon, making it last. "Doctor, what would happen if she tried to return to work too soon? In her current state, it could be life-threatening." "Michael, I've been practicing medicine for 30 years, and I can tell you that this woman has been pushing herself far beyond human limits. Her body is shutting down." After ending the call, Michael returned to Emma, who looked up at him with hopeful eyes. "Is Mama going to be okay?" Michael sat back down beside her, choosing his words carefully. "The doctor is taking very good care of your Mama. She needs to stay in the hospital for a few days to get better, and then she'll need to rest at home." Emma's fork froze halfway to her mouth. "But if Mama can't work, what will happen to us? We'll lose our apartment, and I won't be able to go to school anymore." The practical concerns of a child who had learned too young that survival depended on constant vigilance. Michael realized that he wasn't just looking at Emma anymore. He was looking at his own chance at redemption. "Emma," he said gently, "what if I told you that you never have to worry about those things again?" She tilted her head, confusion clear in her dark eyes. "What do you mean?" Michael took a deep breath, knowing that his next words would change both their lives forever. Michael looked into Emma's trusting eyes and felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. This wasn't just about charity anymore. This was about fundamentally changing the trajectory of two lives that had intersected with his for a reason he was only beginning to understand. "Emma, I want to make you and your mama a promise," Michael said, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was about to commit to. "I want to make sure that your mama never has to work 3 jobs again. I want to make sure you have a safe home and good food, and that you can focus on school instead of worrying about grown-up problems." Emma set down her fork and stared at him with an expression far too serious for her age. "But why would you do that for us? We're nobody special." "You're wrong about that," Michael said firmly. "You are very special, both you and your mama, and sometimes when people have been given a lot, it's their responsibility to share with those who need help." "Like Robin Hood?" Emma asked, her eyes lighting up with recognition. Michael laughed softly. "Something like that, yes." Emma was quiet for a long moment, processing this information with the careful consideration of a child who had learned not to trust too easily in fairy tale endings. "What if you change your mind?" she asked quietly. "What if tomorrow you decide you don't want to help us anymore?" The question revealed the depth of instability this child had already experienced in her short life. Michael realized that his promise meant nothing without action to back it up. "Emma, I'm going to show you something," Michael said, standing and moving to his desk. He pulled out a legal pad and began writing. "I'm writing down my promises to you and your mama, and I'm going to sign it. That makes it official." Emma climbed up into one of the large leather chairs across from his desk, her small frame nearly swallowed by the expensive furniture. She watched intently as Michael wrote. "Promise number 1, he said aloud as he wrote. "Maria Rodriguez will never have to worry about money for medical care again. Promise number 2, Emma Rodriguez will have a college fund that will pay for her to become a teacher or anything else she dreams of being. Promise number 3, the Rodriguez family will have a safe, beautiful home for as long as they want it." Emma's mouth fell open as she listened to each promise. "Are you like a genie or something?" "No," Michael chuckled. "I'm just a man who's been very lucky in life and who wants to share that luck with people who deserve it." As he continued writing, Michael found himself thinking about his own childhood. He'd grown up in privilege, never questioning whether there would be food on the table or a roof over his head. His biggest concerns had been which Ivy League university to attend and which trust fund to access first. The contrast with Emma's reality was stark and humbling. "Promise number 4, he continued, Emma Rodriguez will never have to ride the bus alone in the dark again." "How can you promise all of these things?" Emma asked, her voice filled with wonder. "Because I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, Michael said honestly. "And until this morning, I never really thought about what that meant or what responsibility came with it." Emma slid down from the chair and came around to his side of the desk. Standing on her tiptoes, she tried to read what he'd written. "I can read some of these words," she said proudly. "College, that's where smart people go to learn how to be teachers and doctors and things." "That's right, and you're going to be one of those smart people." Emma looked up at him with an expression that mixed hope with lingering disbelief. "Mr. Michael, can I ask you something else? Anything. Do you have any kids?" The question hit Michael unexpectedly. "No, I don't." "Do you want some?" Michael paused, looking down at this remarkable little girl who had wandered into his life and turned everything upside down. Until this morning, children had been an abstract concept to him, something other people had, but not relevant to his world of boardrooms and profit margins. "I never really thought about it before," he said honestly. Emma nodded seriously. "Mama says that sometimes the best things happen when you're not looking for them." As Michael looked at Emma's earnest face, he realized that Maria Rodriguez had taught her daughter wisdom that no amount of money could buy. And perhaps Just perhaps, this unexpected encounter was about to teach him lessons that no business school had ever offered. "Emma," he said softly, "would you like to go see your mama now?" Her face lit up like Christmas morning. "Really? Right now?" "Right now," Michael confirmed, realizing that his day of board meetings and quarterly reports had just been completely rearranged, and for the first time in years, he didn't care about the business implications at all. Within 30 minutes, Michael had arranged for his personal driver and luxury sedan to take them to the hospital. As they rode through the city, Emma pressed her face against the window, marveling at the morning traffic from the comfort of leather seats that probably cost more than her mother made in a month. "I've never been in a car this fancy," Emma said, running her small hand along the smooth interior. "It's like a movie." Michael watched her innocent amazement and felt something shift permanently in his chest. When was the last time he'd appreciated luxury for what it was, rather than simply expecting it as his due? "Emma, before we see your mama, I want to talk to you about something important," Michael said as they neared the hospital. She turned from the window to give him her full attention, her dark eyes serious. "Your mama might be worried when she sees me," Michael continued. "She might think she's in trouble at work, or that something bad has happened." Emma's brow furrowed with concern. "But you're helping us. You're the nice boss man." "I know that. And you know that, but your mama doesn't know that yet, so I need you to help me show her that everything is going to be okay. Can you do that?" Emma nodded solemnly. "I'll tell her you gave me the best pancakes ever, and that you wrote down all your promises." Michael smiled at her simple logic. "That sounds perfect." As they entered the hospital, Michael was struck by how different everything looked with Emma by his side. The sterile corridors that he'd walked through countless times during charity board meetings suddenly seemed cold and intimidating when viewed through the eyes of a 7-year-old whose mother was somewhere inside, sick and alone. Emma's hand slipped into his as they rode the elevator to the 4th floor, and Michael felt an unexpected surge of protectiveness. This small gesture of trust from a child who had every reason to be wary of adults touched him more deeply than any business achievement ever had. "Room 412, the nurse directed them after Michael explained who they were there to see. Emma's pace quickened as they approached her mother's room, but she stopped short at the doorway. Through the glass partition, they could see Maria Rodriguez lying in the hospital bed, looking frighteningly small and pale against the white sheets. IV tubes ran from her arm, and an oxygen monitor beeped steadily nearby. "Is Mama going to die?" Emma whispered, her brave facade finally cracking. Michael knelt beside her, placing gentle hands on her shoulders. "No, sweetheart, the doctors are taking very good care of her. She's going to get better, and then she's going to come home." Emma took a shaky breath and pushed open the door. "Mama?" Maria's eyes fluttered open at the sound of her daughter's voice. When she saw Emma, her face filled with relief, followed immediately by confusion as she noticed Michael standing behind her. "Mija, what are you doing here? And who is—" Maria's voice was hoarse from coughing, but her protective instincts were clearly intact as she struggled to sit up in bed. "Mama, don't get up!" Emma rushed to her bedside. "This is Mr. Michael. He's the nice boss man who helped me clean your office, and he got you a doctor, and he gave me pancakes, and he wrote down promises." Maria's confused gaze shifted between her daughter and Michael, clearly trying to process this unexpected situation while fighting through her medication-induced fog. "Mrs. Rodriguez," Michael said gently, stepping forward, "my name is Michael Harrison. I'm the CEO of Harrison Industries, where you work. Emma came to the office this morning to do your job because you were too sick to work." Maria's face crumpled with a mixture of embarrassment and fear. "Oh no, sir, I'm so sorry. Emma shouldn't have been there. Please don't fire me. I know I should have called in, but I was afraid. We need this job so much." "Mrs. Rodriguez," Michael interrupted softly, "you're not in trouble. Not at all. Emma is the most remarkable young lady I've ever met, and you should be incredibly proud of her." Emma climbed carefully onto the bed beside her mother, snuggling close. "Mama, Mr. Michael promised to take care of us forever and ever. He wrote it down on paper, so it's real." Maria's eyes filled with tears as she looked at Michael with a mixture of disbelief and desperate hope. "Sir, I don't understand. Why would you—" "Because," Michael said, his voice thick with emotion, "your daughter taught me something very important today. She taught me what real courage looks like. She taught me that kindness and determination aren't about money or power. They're about love." As he spoke, Michael realized that his transformation was complete. The man who had walked into his office at 5:30 a.m. that morning, focused solely on profits and productivity, no longer existed. In his place stood someone who finally understood that true success was measured not in quarterly earnings, but in the lives you touched and the difference you made. Emma smiled up at him from her mother's bedside, and Michael knew that his life would never be the same again. 3 days later, Michael found himself in uncharted territory, the pediatric wing of St. Mary's Hospital, carrying a teddy bear almost as big as Emma herself. Maria had been moved to a private room per his instructions, and her recovery was progressing remarkably well now that she wasn't fighting exhaustion and stress, along with pneumonia. "Mr. Michael!" Emma's voice rang out as he entered the room. She was curled up in a chair beside her mother's bed, a coloring book spread across her lap. The transformation in just 3 days was remarkable. Color had returned to her cheeks, and her eyes sparkled with the carefree joy that every 7-year-old deserved. "How are my 2 favorite ladies today?" Michael asked, setting the enormous bear in the corner where it seemed to stand guard over the room. Maria smiled warmly, though Michael could still see traces of disbelief in her eyes. "Mr. Harrison, you've already done so much. The private room, the specialists, all the toys for Emma. It's too much." "It's not nearly enough," Michael replied firmly. He'd spent the past 3 days learning more about the Rodriguez family's struggles, and each revelation had strengthened his resolve. "Have you given any thought to what we discussed yesterday?" The day before, Michael had presented Maria with an offer that had left her speechless. A position as his personal assistant, with a salary that would allow her to work 1 job instead of 3, comprehensive health insurance, and a signing bonus that would clear all their debts. "I keep thinking there must be a catch," Maria admitted quietly. "People like us don't get opportunities like this." "Mama, Mr. Michael is different," Emma piped up from her coloring book. "He keeps all his promises. Look." She held up a drawing of stick figures standing in front of a house. "This is us in our new home that he promised." Michael's throat tightened as he looked at Emma's artwork. She'd drawn herself and her mother holding hands outside a house with a big yard, flowers in the windows, and a dog playing in the grass. In the corner of the picture, she'd drawn a tall figure in a suit, unmistakably him, with a big smile on his face. "That's beautiful, Emma," he said softly. "I drew you extra tall because Mama says you're the biggest help we've ever had," Emma explained matter-of-factly. Maria's eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Harrison, I need to ask you something, and I hope you'll be honest with me." "Of course. Why us? Out of all the people in the world who need help, why did you choose to change our lives?" Michael was quiet for a moment, considering how to put into words something he was still trying to understand himself. "Maria, for 43 years, I thought success meant accumulating wealth and power. I thought the measure of a man was his net worth and his ability to dominate in business." He moved to the window, looking out at the city below. "But when I found Emma in my office that morning, trying so hard to help her family, I realized I'd been living in a bubble. I'd surrounded myself with luxury while remaining blind to the real world just outside my door. But that still doesn't explain. You want to know what changed everything?" Michael turned back to face them. "It was when Emma asked me if I had any children. For the first time in my life, I wondered what kind of legacy I was really leaving behind. What was the point of building an empire if I had no one to share it with, no one to pass on anything meaningful to?" Emma looked up from her coloring, sensing the importance of the conversation, even if she didn't fully understand it. "Emma reminded me that family isn't just about blood," Michael continued. It's about choosing to care for people, about being there when someone needs you most. And you two have given me something I didn't even know I was missing." Maria wiped away tears with the back of her hand. "What's that?" "A purpose beyond profit margins," Michael said simply. "The chance to be the kind of man who makes a real difference." Dr. Wells entered the room at that moment, her clipboard in hand and a smile on her face. "Good news, Maria. Your latest chest x-rays show significant improvement. I think we can start talking about discharge tomorrow." Emma bounced excitedly in her chair. "Does that mean Mama can come home?" "It does indeed," Dr. Wells confirmed, "but she'll need to take things easy for the next few weeks. No heavy lifting, plenty of rest, and absolutely no returning to work until I give the all clear." Michael noticed the flash of worry that crossed Maria's face at the mention of not working, despite everything he'd told her about the job offer. "Actually," Michael said, "I have some news about that. Maria, if you're willing to accept my offer, I'd like you to start your new position in 3 weeks, once Dr. Wells clears you for work. That will give you time to recover fully, and for Emma to get settled into her new school." "New school?" Emma's head popped up, eyes wide. Michael grinned. "The best private school in the city. They have an excellent reading program, and I heard they need someone to help teach the younger kids how to read." Emma's gasp of delight filled the room. "Really? I could teach other kids? If that's what you want to do," Michael confirmed. Maria was quiet for a long moment, and Michael could see her struggling between disbelief and hope. Finally she spoke. "Mr. Harrison, if I accept this offer, I want you to know that you'll have the most loyal, hardest working assistant you've ever had. I will earn every penny of what you're offering." "Maria," Michael said gently, "you've already earned it. You've raised an extraordinary daughter while working yourself to exhaustion. You've taught Emma values that no amount of money can buy. Trust me when I say that I'm the one getting the better end of this deal." As he looked at Emma's beaming face and Maria's tears of gratitude, Michael realized that his transformation was far from complete. This was just the beginning of a journey that would reshape not only their lives, but his understanding of what it truly meant to be successful. 2 weeks later, Michael stood in the driveway of a charming 3-bedroom house in one of the city's safest neighborhoods, watching as Emma raced around the backyard with unbridled joy. The house was perfect. Not too ostentatious, but comfortable and secure, with a small garden that Maria had already begun planning and a tire swing that Michael had insisted on installing before they moved in. "The moving truck should be here within the hour," Michael told Maria as she stood on the front porch, still looking somewhat dazed by the rapid changes in their circumstances. "I keep thinking I'm going to wake up," Maria said softly. 3 weeks ago, we were one missed paycheck away from being homeless. Now you have a home," Michael finished. "Forever if you want it." Emma came running over, her new shoes already grass-stained and her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Mr. Michael, did you see the big tree in the back? It's perfect for climbing, and there's a bird's nest up there with baby birds." "I saw that," Michael laughed. "Just promise me you'll be careful if you decide to climb it." "I promise," Emma said solemnly, then brightened. "Will you come see my new room? It has 2 windows and everything." Michael followed Emma inside, marveling at how different the house felt, with her laughter echoing through it. He'd purchased the property quickly, but he'd been careful to choose something that felt like a home rather than a showcase. The previous owners had been an elderly couple who'd raised 4 children here, and their love for the house was evident in every carefully maintained detail. "This is where my bed is going to go," Emma announced, pointing to a spot by the window. "And over there is where I'll have my desk for homework. Mama says when I'm older, I can paint the walls any color I want." "Any color?" Michael raised an eyebrow playfully. "Well, maybe not rainbow," Emma giggled, "but maybe yellow, like sunshine." Maria appeared in the doorway, holding a box marked Emma's Books, one of the few possessions they'd brought from their old apartment. "I still can't believe she's going to have her own room," she said quietly. "We've been sharing a pull-out couch for the past 2 years." The casual mention of their previous living conditions hit Michael hard. as these revelations always did. While he'd been sleeping in a bedroom larger than most people's entire apartments, Emma and Maria had been making do with a couch in what was probably a studio apartment in one of the city's rougher neighborhoods. "Speaking of Emma's education," Michael said, "I have some news. I spoke with Mrs. Henderson at Riverside Academy yesterday. They're excited to have Emma join their third-grade class next week." Emma's eyes went wide. "Really? I get to start the new school soon?" "Monday morning," Michael confirmed. And Mrs. Henderson told me they have a special program where older students help teach reading to kindergarteners. She thought Emma might be interested. I could really be a teacher?" Emma's voice was filled with wonder. "A teacher's assistant," Maria corrected gently. But her smile was as bright as her daughter's. The sound of a large truck rumbling up the street interrupted their conversation. Through the window, they could see a moving van with Harrison Industries, Executive Relocation Services, painted on the side. "That's our stuff," Emma exclaimed, racing to the window. Michael had arranged for a full-service moving company to not only transport their few belongings from the old apartment, but to furnish the entire house with everything they could possibly need. He'd been careful to consult with Maria on every decision, not wanting to overwhelm them or make choices that didn't reflect their tastes. "Mr. Michael," Emma said suddenly, tugging on his sleeve, "can I ask you something important?" "Of course." "Sweetheart," Emma looked uncharacteristically serious, "are you going to live here too?" The question caught Michael off guard. "Oh no, Emma. This house is for you and your mama. I have my own place." Emma's face fell slightly. "But we're like a family now, right? And families live together." Michael felt his chest tighten with emotion. "Emma, we are like a family, but sometimes family members live in different houses. That doesn't make them any less family. Like when grown-ups have their own apartments but still love their moms and dads?" Emma asked. Emma, working through the concept. "Exactly like that," Michael confirmed. Maria watched this exchange with tears in her eyes. Later, as the movers bustled around them, carrying in furniture and boxes, she pulled Michael aside. "She's never had a father figure," Maria said quietly. "Her biological father left when she was 2. She doesn't even remember him." "Maria, I hope you know that I would never try to replace—" "That's not what I'm worried about," Maria interrupted gently. "I'm worried about what happens when you get tired of playing house with us. When the novelty wears off and you remember that you're a billionaire CEO who could have any life he wants." Michael was quiet for a moment, watching Emma direct the movers on where to place her new bookshelf. "Maria, do you know what I did every weekend before I met you and Emma?" She shook her head. She shook. "I worked," Michael said simply. "Saturdays, Sundays, holidays. I lived in my office or my empty penthouse, surrounded by expensive things that meant nothing to me. I had everything money could buy and nothing that mattered." He turned to meet Maria's concerned gaze. "Emma asked me if I wanted children. The truth is, I never thought I deserved them. I thought I was too selfish, too focused on business to be good for anyone. But you two have shown me who I could become." "And what if you change your mind?" Maria pressed. "What if you decide we're too much responsibility?" Michael looked at Emma, who was now showing one of the movers her collection of books, explaining each one with animated gestures. "Maria," he said softly, 3 weeks ago, I thought the most important thing in my life was a quarterly earnings report. Today, I cancelled 3 board meetings because I didn't want to miss helping Emma set up her new room. If that's not proof that some changes are permanent, I don't know what is." As they stood watching Emma make herself at home in a house that represented security, comfort and hope, Michael realized that he wasn't just giving them a new beginning, they were giving him one too. Monday morning arrived with Emma bouncing out of bed at dawn, her excitement about starting at Riverside Academy too strong to contain. Michael had arrived early to drive them to school, wanting to be there for this milestone moment. "Do I look okay?" Emma asked for the 5th time, smoothing down her new uniform, a navy blue skirt, white blouse, and red cardigan that made her look older and more confident. "You look beautiful, Mija," Maria said, adjusting Emma's collar with the practiced hands of a loving mother. You look like the smartest girl in the whole school, Michael added, earning him a brilliant smile. The drive to Riverside Academy took them through tree-lined streets in one of the city's most prestigious neighborhoods. The school itself was an impressive brick building with manicured grounds and children in matching uniforms walking confidently toward the entrance. It's so big, Emma whispered, pressing her face to the car window. And full of kids who are going to be lucky to have you as a friend, Michael assured her. As they walked toward the main entrance, Michael noticed several parents doing double takes when they recognized him. The Harrison name carried significant weight in the city, especially in these circles where private school tuition cost more than many people's annual salaries. Mrs. Henderson, Emma's new teacher, was waiting in the classroom, a warm woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and an infectious smile. You must be Emma, she said, crouching down to Emma's level. I've heard wonderful things about you. You have? Emma asked, suddenly shy. I heard you're an excellent reader and that you love to help other people learn. Is that true? Emma nodded, glancing back at Michael and Maria for reassurance. Well, that's perfect, Mrs. Henderson continued, because I have some kindergarten students who could really use a reading buddy. Would you like to meet them after we get you settled in with your classmates? Emma's face lit up. Really? I could help teach them? Absolutely. Some of our best teachers started as reading buddies when they were your age. As Mrs. Henderson introduced Emma to the class, Michael watched from the doorway with Maria beside him. The other children welcomed Emma warmly, and within minutes she was chatting animatedly with a girl named Sophie about their favorite books. She fits right in, Maria murmured, wonder in her voice. Of course she does, Michael replied. Emma has something special. She makes everyone around her feel important. After ensuring Emma was comfortable, Michael and Maria walked back to the car together. It was the first time they'd been alone since that morning in the hospital, and Michael sensed that Maria had something on her mind. Michael, she said as they settled into the car, I start work tomorrow, and I need to know something. What's that? What do you expect from me? I mean, really? I know you said you need a personal assistant, but someone with your resources could hire anyone. Harvard graduates, people with decades of experience. Why me? Michael considered the question as he started the car. It was fair, and Maria deserved an honest answer. Because, he said finally, I don't need someone to manage my calendar or screen my calls. I need someone to help me remember what's important, someone who won't let me forget that behind every business decision are real people with real lives. You want me to be your conscience? Maria asked with a slight smile. I want you to help me be the kind of CEO who makes decisions with his heart as well as his head, Michael clarified. Someone who understands that the most important metrics aren't always the ones that show up on financial reports. They drove in comfortable silence for a while, both lost in thought about how dramatically their lives had changed. There's something else, Maria said eventually. Emma's been asking questions about you, about why you're helping us, about whether you're going to be in our lives permanently. What kind of questions? She asked me if you were going to be her daddy now, Maria said quietly. Michael felt his breath catch. What did you tell her? I told her that families come in all different shapes, and that sometimes the people who love us most aren't the ones we share blood with, Maria replied. But Michael, she's 7 years old. She's getting attached to you. And I need to know that you're prepared for that responsibility. The weight of Maria's words settled over Michael as he realized the full scope of what he'd taken on. This wasn't just about financial support or even job opportunities. He'd become a central figure in a little girl's life, someone she looked up to and depended on. Maria, he said seriously, I've never been a father. I don't know if I'd be any good at it, but I do know that Emma has changed my life in ways I'm still trying to understand, and I know that I would never do anything to hurt her. Being a parent isn't about being perfect, Maria said softly. It's about showing up, being consistent, and putting their needs before your own. As they pulled into the driveway of the house that was now home to the Rodriguez family, Michael found himself thinking about Emma's question. Was he prepared to be a father figure? The answer surprised him with its clarity. He was not only prepared, he couldn't imagine his life without them anymore. 6 months later, Michael sat in his office reviewing quarterly reports when Maria knocked on his door. The transformation in her was remarkable. Gone was the exhausted, worried woman he'd first met in the hospital. In her place was a confident, radiant person who'd proven to be not just an excellent assistant, but an invaluable advisor. "The Peterson contract needs your signature," Maria said, placing the documents on his desk. "And don't forget, Emma's school play is tonight at 7. Michael smiled. His calendar was now peppered with school events, parent-teacher conferences, and weekend activities that revolved around a 7-year-old's schedule. The board members had initially been puzzled by his newfound work-life balance, but the results spoke for themselves. Harrison Industries was more profitable than ever, with employee satisfaction at an all-time high. "How could I forget?" Michael replied. "She's been practicing her lines for weeks. I think I know the entire script by heart at this point." Emma was playing the lead in her class production of The Little Red Hen, a role she'd earned through her natural leadership abilities and her talent for memorizing lines. Michael had never been to a school play before, but he found himself more excited about this performance than he'd been about any business presentation. "There's something else," Maria said, her tone becoming more serious. "I got a call from Emma's teacher this morning. She wants to discuss Emma's academic progress with us." "Is everything okay?" Michael asked, immediately concerned. "More than okay," Maria smiled. "Mrs. Henderson says Emma is reading at a 5th grade level and helping her classmates with their assignments. She wants to discuss moving her into the advanced program." Pride swelled in Michael's chest. "That's incredible, though I can't say I'm surprised." "She gets it from her mother," Michael said, and he meant it. Working closely with Maria had revealed her sharp intelligence and natural business instincts. She'd already suggested several process improvements that had saved the company significant time and money. "Speaking of which," Maria continued, "I have an idea I'd like to run by you. It's about the new community outreach initiative you mentioned." Michael leaned back in his chair, giving her his full attention. "I'm listening. What if we created a program specifically designed to help single mothers in situations like mine? Job training, childcare assistance, educational support, a comprehensive program that addresses all the barriers that keep families trapped in poverty." The suggestion was brilliant, and Michael found himself wondering why he'd never thought of it before. "Tell me more." "We could partner with local schools, healthcare providers, and housing organizations," Maria continued, her excitement evident. "Create a pipeline that identifies families in need and provides them with the resources to build stable, independent lives." "How would we find these families?" "They're everywhere, Michael, in every cleaning crew, every restaurant kitchen, every hospital laundry room. They're the invisible workforce that keeps this city running, but they're trapped because they can't afford to take time off for training or education." Michael was quiet for a moment, processing the scope of what Maria was proposing. It would be a significant undertaking, requiring substantial resources and coordination across multiple organizations. "What would we call this program?" he asked. Maria smiled. "I was thinking the Emma Initiative, because every child deserves the same opportunities Emma has been given." The name hit Michael like a physical blow, but in the best possible way. "The Emma Initiative," he repeated softly. "Is that okay, using her name?" "It's perfect," Michael said, his voice thick with emotion. "When do we start?" "I've already done some preliminary research," Maria admitted. "There are currently over 3,000 single mothers in our city working multiple jobs to support their families. If we could help even a fraction of them." Michael stood up and walked to the window overlooking the city. Somewhere out there were thousands of families struggling the way Maria and Emma had struggled. Children going to bed hungry, mothers working themselves sick just to survive. "Maria," he said, turning back to face her, I want you to lead this initiative. Full budget authority, whatever staff you need, complete autonomy to make it work. Michael, I don't have experience running a program this large. You have something better than experience, Michael interrupted. You have understanding. You know what these families need because you've lived it. Maria was quiet for a moment, and Michael could see her processing the magnitude of what he was offering. There's one condition, she said finally. What's that? Emma gets to be involved, age appropriately, of course, but I want her to understand that with privilege comes responsibility and that helping others should be a natural part of her life. Michael thought about Emma, now thriving in her new school, secure in her new home, no longer carrying the weight of adult worries on her 7-year-old shoulders. The idea of her learning to give back, to help other children who were facing the struggles she'd once known, seemed like the perfect way to honor how far they'd all come. I think, Michael said softly, that's exactly what she would want. As they began to plan what would become the most meaningful project of Michael's career, he realized that this conversation represented something profound. The moment when his personal transformation became a force for changing other lives. The ripple effects of finding Emma in his office that morning were about to spread far beyond what any of them had ever imagined. 1 year after their first meeting, Michael found himself in familiar territory, arriving at Harrison Industries before dawn. But this time, he wasn't alone. Emma sat beside him in the passenger seat of his car, a small thermos of hot chocolate in her hands and a serious expression on her 8-year-old face. "Tell me again why we're here so early," Emma asked, though her eyes sparkled with excitement. "Because today is a very special day," Michael replied as they rode the elevator to the executive floor. "Today we're announcing the Emma Initiative to the entire company." Emma had insisted on being present for the announcement. Despite Maria's concerns about her missing school, Michael had supported Emma's request, understanding instinctively that this moment was about more than just a business launch. It was about Emma seeing her story become something that could help others. "And there are really 3,000 moms like Mama was?" Emma asked as they walked through the quiet offices. "At least 3,000, Michael confirmed. "Maybe more." Emma was quiet for a moment, processing this information with the seriousness she brought to all important topics. "That means there are 3,000 kids like I was, too." "Exactly. Kids who are scared about where they're going to live and whether their moms are going to be okay." Michael's throat tightened. Even a year later, Emma's matter-of-fact references to her previous life could still catch him off guard. "Yes, sweetheart. Then we have to help them," Emma said with the simple certainty that only children possess. "We have to help them all." As they entered Michael's office, the same space where their journey had begun, Michael was struck by how different everything felt. The room looked the same, but its meaning had been completely transformed. Where once it had been a symbol of isolation and cold ambition, it was now the headquarters for something meaningful. Maria arrived shortly after, carrying a folder thick with presentation materials and wearing the confident smile of someone who'd found her true calling. Over the past 6 months, she'd thrown herself into developing the Emma Initiative with a passion that impressed even Michael. "How's our star feeling this morning?" Maria asked, giving Emma a quick hug. "Nervous," Emma admitted. "What if people don't like the idea?" "Then we'll convince them," Maria said firmly. "Because this isn't just an idea, Mika. This is hope, and hope is something everyone can understand." At exactly 9 a.m., Michael stood before a conference room filled with his senior executives, board members, and department heads. These were people accustomed to presentations about market share and profit margins, not social initiatives named after 8-year-old girls. "Ladies and gentlemen," Michael began, 18 months ago, if someone had told me that the most important presentation of my career would be about helping single mothers and their children, I would have questioned their sanity." A few chuckles rippled through the room, but Michael could sense the underlying skepticism. These were business people, focused on bottom lines and shareholder returns. But then something happened that changed everything, Michael continued. I met someone who taught me that true success isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in lives changed. He gestured toward the back of the room, where Emma sat beside Maria, her small hands folded carefully in her lap. I'd like you to meet Emma Rodriguez, the inspiration for Harrison Industries' newest and most important initiative. Emma stood up as they'd practiced, her voice clear and strong as she addressed the room full of adults. Hi everyone, my name is Emma, and a year ago my mom and I didn't have enough food or a safe place to live. My mom worked 3 jobs but was still sick because she couldn't afford to go to the doctor. I was scared all the time. The room had gone completely silent. Every person focused on this articulate child, sharing her story with remarkable poise. But then I met Mr. Michael, and he showed me that sometimes when you're really scared and don't know what to do, help can come from places you never expected. He helped my mum get better, and he gave us a home, and he made sure I could go to school and learn to be a teacher. Emma paused, looking around the room with the confidence of someone who'd learned she had a voice worth hearing. Now I want to help other kids who are scared like I was. Mr. Michael and my mom made something called the Emma Initiative, and it's going to help families like mine, because every kid deserves to feel safe, and every mom deserves help when she needs it. As Emma sat back down, Michael could see the transformation in the room. The skepticism had been replaced by something deeper, recognition of genuine purpose. The Emma Initiative, Michael continued, will provide comprehensive support to single-parent families. Job training, childcare, healthcare assistance, educational support, and temporary housing when needed. We're not just offering charity, we're offering pathways to independence and stability. Maria stood to present the detailed program structure, her presentation polished and professional. She outlined partnerships with local organizations, success metrics, and a sustainable funding model that would allow the program to grow and serve more families over time. The initial investment will be $10 million, Michael announced as Maria concluded her presentation. But based on our projections, the long-term economic benefits to our community, reduced crime, increased educational achievement, higher employment rates, will far exceed our investment. Board member Patricia Williams raised her hand. Michael, this is certainly admirable, but how does this align with our fiduciary responsibility to shareholders? Before Michael could respond, Emma stood up again, and the room fell quiet. May I answer that? Emma asked politely. Patricia nodded, clearly curious to hear an 8-year-old's perspective on fiduciary responsibility. Mr. Michael taught me that companies are made up of people, Emma said. And people work better when they're not worried about their families. If we help the moms, their kids can focus on school instead of being scared. And when those kids grow up, they'll remember that Harrison Industries helped them, so they'll want to work here or buy things from here. The room erupted in applause, and Michael felt tears sting his eyes. Emma had just articulated the business case for social responsibility better than most consultants could. As the meeting concluded and people began approaching Emma to congratulate her, Michael realized that this wasn't just the launch of a social program. It was the moment when Harrison Industries became the kind of company he'd always dreamed of leading, guided by the wisdom of a remarkable little girl who taught him what really mattered. 2 years after their first meeting, on a crisp autumn morning, Michael stood in the kitchen of the Rodriguez family home, helping Emma prepare her lunch for school. It had become their routine. He would stop by most mornings before work, sharing breakfast and helping with the small daily tasks that had somehow become the most important part of his day. Don't forget you have your piano lesson after school, Maria called from the living room, where she was reviewing applications for the Emma Initiative's latest expansion. I won't forget, Mama, Emma replied, carefully placing her sandwich in her lunchbox. Mrs. Patterson says I'm ready to start learning für Elise. Michael smiled, remembering when they'd surprised Emma with the piano 6 months earlier. She'd thrown herself into lessons with the same enthusiasm she brought to everything else, and their house now filled with music most evenings. Mr. Michael, Emma said suddenly, her tone becoming serious in the way that usually preceded important conversations. Can I ask you something? Always, Michael replied, closing her lunchbox and giving her his full attention. At school yesterday, my friend Sarah asked me something, and I didn't know how to answer. What did she ask? Emma fidgeted with the strap of her backpack, clearly weighing her words carefully. She asked if you were my dad. Michael felt his breath catch. This question had been hovering around the edges of their relationship for months, but neither Emma nor Maria had addressed it directly. What did you tell her? Michael asked gently. I told her it was complicated, Emma said. Because you're not my biological dad, but you do all the dad things. You help me with homework, and you come to my school plays, and you teach me how to throw a baseball, and you worry about me when I'm sick. Maria appeared in the doorway, having overheard the conversation. Michael could see the concern in her eyes. They'd never formally discussed his role in Emma's life, allowing their relationship to evolve naturally without labels or legal definitions. And then Sarah asked me what the difference was between a biological dad and a regular dad, Emma continued, and I realized I didn't really know. Michael knelt down so he was at Emma's eye level, his heart pounding with the weight of this moment. What do you think the difference is? He asked. Emma considered this seriously. I think a biological dad is the person who helped make you, but a regular dad is the person who helps make you who you become. The simple wisdom of her answer took Michael's breath away. That's very wise, Emma. So does that make you my regular dad? Emma asked, her voice hopeful but cautious. Michael glanced at Maria, who nodded encouragingly, tears shining in her eyes. Emma, Michael said softly, if you want me to be your dad, your regular dad, then I would be honored. Because you've made me who I've become too. Emma's face lit up with pure joy. Really? You want to be my dad? More than anything in the world, Michael replied, and meant it completely. Emma threw her arms around his neck, hugging him with the fierce intensity that only children can muster. Over her shoulder, Michael met Maria's gaze, and he saw in her face the same mixture of love, gratitude, and wonder that he felt in his own heart. Does this mean we'll all have the same last name? Emma asked, pulling back to look at him. If that's what you want, Michael said, we'd have to make it official with some paperwork, but yes, if you want to be Emma Harrison, then that's what we'll do. And Mama too? She'd be Maria Harrison? Michael looked at Maria, seeing the question in her eyes that had been unspoken between them for months. Their relationship had deepened from friendship to something much more profound, but they'd been careful to let it develop naturally, without pressure or expectations. That would be up to your mama, Michael said carefully. Maria stepped forward, joining them in the kitchen that had become the heart of their improvised family. Mija, she said to Emma, how would you feel about Mr. Michael becoming not just your daddy, but my husband too? Emma's gasp of delight could probably be heard 3 houses away. Like a real family, all official and everything. All official and everything, Maria confirmed, tears streaming down her cheeks as Michael took her hand. As they stood together in the morning sunshine streaming through the kitchen windows, Michael realized that this moment represented the completion of a transformation that had begun 3 years earlier in a sterile office building. The man who had once measured success only in financial terms had discovered that the greatest wealth came from the love of a family, and that the most important legacy wasn't the empire he'd built, but the lives he'd helped to nurture and grow. Emma Rodriguez, soon to be Emma Harrison, had taught him that sometimes the most profound changes begin with a single act of kindness, and that true success was measured not in what you accumulated, but in what you gave away. Their story was just beginning,